Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Holding the Hope, the Other Nine podcast, which is where we talk about all of the guiding principles of recovery except peer support, because everybody's already talking about peer support. So we're going to talk about all the other nine. And I have here with me today Austin Varco. And Austin is this incredible young man that I met via LinkedIn because so there's two lessons here. One is don't be afraid to cold call people. And so I got this message from Austin out of nowhere saying, hey, I think our values and our missions align. And I'm a race car driver and I would love to have you as a sponsor. And I'm like, that is the most fun solicitation I've ever gotten. So it's like, how much is it? And it was so reasonable. I was like, absolutely, I'm in. So now Austin is one of my partners, and I just am so happy to be a part of your world and to have you be a part of the Holding the Hope world. So we're just going to have a conversation today, Austin, and I hope that between the two of us, we can kind of figure out ways that people can find value in the work that we do. I'm sure they will. But I have to say, I was reading the info that my team sent over, and it's so interesting. And one of the things they said was like, I love this, the why behind the wheel. So you were diagnosed with level 1 autism at age 20, and you've been strapped into a helmet and driving and all of these things since you were 3 years old. So is there a connect? Okay, so first of all, I know next to nothing about autism. Even though I'm in the mental health recovery world, I just have never had the opportunity to have that intersection where I learn a lot about a specific topic. So I'm going to take advantage of having you here with me and ask you to explain to us what is autism and what is level 1 autism, and then we can kind of talk about that intersection with what you love, which is the racing. So let's just start with that. What is autism? And how did it show up in your life?
That's the question I feel more equipped to answer, because I think that the key thing with autism is that it reflects differently in every person that has it. And the more that we have learned about it as a society, the more the definition of what autism is has kind of opened up. And we went from thinking it was a spectrum from low support needs to high support needs, or what used to be referred to as low functioning and high functioning, and is now viewed as it's now viewed kind of as a web, and it's more directional. So you might have low support needs in something like your social communication and how you handle conversation, but you might have high support needs in a challenging sensory environment. So, for me, autism is mostly reflected in emotional regulation. It's reflected in executive functioning, and it's reflected in not so much anymore, but for a long, long time, just challenges with communication, effective communication, especially between, really close friends and girlfriends of the past and stuff like that. And just general social situations and how to handle those things. So I was diagnosed in college. I was in my senior year of college when I was diagnosed, which is a lot later than most diagnosed by 4 years old. And, truthfully, I didn't know what autism was until I read that I had it. And so it was a little bit of a surprise, because there was, at least in how I grew up, there were stigmas around it. And it wasn't viewed as a good thing. And I don't know that it truthfully is, but I do know that getting diagnosed was one of the best things that could have happened to me at that time, because it opened me up to solutions to problems that I barely, had a grasp on. And I just felt like I was dealing with. So
yeah. Yeah, and when you're young like that, you don't have the life experience to really understand that things are temporary, first of all, and that you can create coping skills to help you with stuff, and that you don't have to be perfect at everything, and we're not born with all the solutions.
Yeah, and I think that's the light of the story that I want to share is at least for me, autism has been, I view it as a challenge that, I work to overcome every day. And I think that it's something that could inspire people, even if you don't have autism, but you're living with some other issue, just getting up in the morning and knowing that you can put your best foot forward and working to overcome those challenges. And I'm very grateful that in my life, I don't have high support needs in a lot of areas, the way that millions of others with autism do.
Right.
And I'm grateful that I have a voice and that and a platform that I can share that on, to bring light to those people that may not have the same opportunities.
How did you get started with the Race for Autism?
It was right after I was diagnosed. It was something that I was doing some self-reflection, because when I was diagnosed, I thought there's no way this is true. I can go to the racetrack and I don't emotionally shut down when I hear loud race cars or smell, race fuel.
Yeah.
And so for me, sensory challenging was all I thought autism was. And so it occurred to me that when I was 3 or 4 years old and I was at racetracks with my parents, a lot of kids on the spectrum won't get to experience that, either because they themselves can't handle it, or because their parents view the racetrack as being an unsafe environment. And so for me, Race for Autism was about creating an environment that is viewed as safe for kids and families affected by autism to experience racing. And I get to show off my race car, and then it snowballed, and now it's I view it as a driver's education tool. And
yeah, you said once to me that like many people with autism never get their driver's license.
Yeah, so
and you really wanted to encourage them to take to stretch and take that leap.
Yeah, statistically, only 1/3 of those with autism will ever get a driver's license in the United States.
Wow.
Compare that to the 91% of Americans that drive.
Yeah.
And so, and as you know, and everyone listening knows, it's kind of your key to independence in this country. There's not a lot of public transportation outside of like the Northeast. And so, especially where I live in San Diego, you have to have a car. You have to be able to drive. So I look at driving as independence.
Do you feel like that's kind of a self-limiting belief, or do you think that there are people with autism who simply cannot drive, like physically are not able to manage the complicated processes that come with driving?
The research that I've received, I have not conducted any legitimate research, but the research I've received points to the leading causes of those with autism not getting licenses being related to fear, and related to sensory challenges. So, which that one I expected, but fear is something that I believe can be overcome. And I try to practice that every day. So, for me, I think the reason that Race for Autism has gone that direction is, well, I use my racing simulator to practice. There it is behind me. I use it.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
My racing. So why wouldn't, if I've never been to a track before, I get on the simulator and I turn 100 laps until I know it like the back of my hand. Well, why wouldn't you do that if you've never driven a car before, period? Why wouldn't you start building the hand-eye coordination and start figuring out how to drive a car before you ever get in one and risk your safety and other people's safety? And I think that with simulators, we create a rehearsal that people can do before they ever get behind the wheel of a car that actually gets them excited about driving, not scared. The amount of people that we see, our program last year, we impacted between 20 and 25,000 people. And
wow, that's amazing.
and all of that is thanks to all the partners that let us bring our setup there. And it's a totally free thing. And you know, companies or nonprofits like Autism Speaks and Special Olympics let us bring our setup and let people drive on them. So I'm forever thankful for that. But yeah, we see the amount of people that are terrified of the sim before they ever get on it. They're scared. They don't want to do it. Their parents are saying, if you don't want to do it, it's okay. But they see the other kids jump on the sim and do well and survive. And then they go, well, that actually looks kind of fun. And then by the end of it, they've got a grin ear to ear, and they're loving it. They're staying on the asphalt, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think, you know, if I can have an impact on that number, even just a tiny little bit, that 33%, then I think I've done my job.
That is, 100%. Like, that is so exciting. The number of people that you've impacted with that is so amazing. How did, like, what was the process like for you once you got diagnosed with autism? And like, what took you, if you don't mind talking about it, what got you to the diagnostic chair? What was happening in your life that wasn't working when you realized, hey, something's off here. I need to figure this out.
Yeah, well, it started in middle school. And in middle school, I started seeing a therapist at 13 years old. I was just going in ninth grade when I started seeing a therapist. And my parents were not big fans of labels. And so I was allowed to have conventional talk therapy, but I wasn't, you know, my parents thought that a label would be a limiting factor to my life. And in some respects, I do agree. I think that if I had known in high school that I was diagnosed with autism, there's a very strong possibility that I wouldn't have tried to rush a fraternity in college. And if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't meet one of my best friends in the world. So I do think that there was a positive to growing up the way that I did. But I will say that, you know, the catalyst for my diagnosis or seeking a diagnosis rather was being in very frequent social circles in college and just a constant feeling of I didn't fit in and that I felt like I was wearing a mask all the time. And that was before I even knew what masking was, but you know, just putting on a face all the time. And I would get in these really bad moods, just seemingly like night and day. Like I'd be having a great time and then it would be a big mood swing and I would emotionally like shut down. And I would lash out to my friends and I blew up relationships all the time. And I kind of asked myself, like, what the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? All my friends seem
it's a frequent question that happens in my world too.
Yeah. And so ultimately I went and sought out a mental evaluation. It wasn't necessarily an autism diagnosis.
Right.
And what came back was an autism diagnosis. And so I think the shoe fits there much better than something like bipolar. Which some of the traits that I had definitely would have fit in that bucket. And so, you know, I think it was accurate, but it was very informative. And I got the test took 3 days, 8 hours a day or 6 hours. It was a long evaluation. And they gave me back like a 7 or an 8 page kind of paper about me and how my brain works and what I could, the tools that I could, that was the most important part. The last page was like all the tools that they recommend for my life. And the biggest thing and the first thing on the list was go get an occupational therapist, an OT. And so, which I didn't know what that was, but I had been in talk therapy my whole life. And so I went to an OT, and that was, to be honest, that was the life-changing thing. Cause it, you know, she was very goal-oriented, which is how I am. And it gave me legitimate, I felt like homework that I could go and rehearse and practice in my daily life. And so I became less I needed other people's help less the more that I did OT and kind of went through that process. So I'd say that was the biggest impact from a positive way after that.
That's an amazing story. So much of, in my personal opinion, when we talk about recovery, it's all, for me, the most important thing is self-determination and personal responsibility. Like, yeah, your brain works different. Yeah, so does mine, right? And for different reasons, different causes, different manifestations. But the bottom line is that we have to take personal responsibility for having the life that we want, right? You like went and got this. You like, hey, something's not right here. I'm looking around. All my friends are doing their life differently. I'm going to go and figure out what is going on here. And then I'm going to take the steps that are suggested. So I think that for so many people, that step of taking responsibility is really where the big change comes. Like you said, when you got the homework. Now, you could have gone to that occupational therapist and not done any of the homework that she assigned her, and not done any of the work, but that's clearly not who you are, right?
I try not to be.
Right? And sometimes it's hard, it's overwhelming. You're like, what the hell's wrong with me? I'm fine just the way I am. You'd like it or leave it, right? That's and so what happens then is that everybody leaves it. So you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess maybe I do need to do something different.
That's and like ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change. I'll change everything else, but the ice cream stays.
Stays. Tell me about that. What about the ice cream?
I love vanilla ice cream. I know that is like cliche being vanilla, but that is my, like, it's the one thing, I don't know. I've had it all my life, and I've tried every single brand, and there, to me, it's just like I can cut things out of my life that are toxic. You know, I can not drink alcohol. I can work out all the time. Like I can get to a position where really but in my life, I find that in order to live balanced in a lot of areas, I need to have like one thing that I let myself have. And for me, that
you,
ice cream. Yeah.
Vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla ice cream.
Do you put anything on it?
Nope. Vanilla ice cream and I have to eat it with an ice cream spoon, like with the flat edge. So it's just
the scooper? You eat it with the scooper?
No. I have like these little spoons that are shaped like a D, like that, or a D. I guess. And they cut the ice cream really well. So it
sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know they made ice cream spoons. I'll have to look for them now. Now I'm gonna want one.
I'm sure there's someone on Amazon selling them.
How did your autism diagnosis impact your racing?
That's a good question. I think the biggest area, people ask me if it's a superpower, and there's some, there are some athletes that bill their autism as a superpower, and I'm not in that camp. I can see why. For some people, I can see why. I don't know that with my brain there's some advantage towards it, but I do think that I can have blistering focus, but to a fault. I don't eat or drink for days, and that's just part of it. Not healthy, obviously. And so I don't really look at that like a positive so much. It's like more like I can't manage my own, I can't read my body. And so that's not really a great thing. But I get a lot done in that window of time. So, it's a positive and a negative.
Right.
I have good attention to detail. I learn really quickly. But then on the flip side, I can learn very slowly when it comes to the very fine things. I tend to miss those things. And I think that's probably not autism. That's probably ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD too. So I believe that there's some things that I'll make the same mistake over and over again. I think that's a working memory problem. Just like it just didn't click. So I don't know, those would be the areas that I find it affects me. But, you know, at the end of the day, the reason I love to race is because I feel like everybody else. I put my helmet on and I don't just feel like everybody else. I go there to beat everybody else. So it to me, it has nothing to do with autism and more to do with just being competitive.
Yeah, well, you've been at it since you were a little kid, so you're like, yeah, let's go. Right?
Yeah. I think. Go ahead.
And the simulator you've got back there, that's so cool that you can just sit there and practice.
Yeah. So
can you like load up different? You can load up different racetracks. So like when you're like in August, you're coming to Portland, which I'm so excited to see you and bring the whole team. I can't even tell you what a hero I am that when I took my team to Portland International Raceway and we got we got our seats and we were just like, yay. And my staff was just very happy and they're super excited about this year as well because they get to bring a friend. So anyway, so you can like load up the PIR in there and just practice on that track.
Yeah. So the thing about racing is as you know, Mary, but people watching home might not know. It's not like any other sport. It's not like basketball where you can go to your local rec center and pay $30 a month and have a basketball court in your backyard.
Right.
To go turn one lap on a racetrack in virtually any vehicle, you're looking at minimum hundreds, if not definitely thousands of dollars. Just to do one lap, because you have towing costs, you've got your entry fees, which usually on a test day, the tracks have to hire insurance and they have to have, fire safety on there. So the entry fees are not cheap. And then you've got all of your consumables. So you have fuel, you've got tires, you're going to blow through brake pads. And so even just turning laps for practice is tremendously expensive. And in my life doesn't even exist. It's not something that we can even afford to do. And so the best bet that you've got, if you're not one of those drivers that can go to the track every Tuesday, is your simulator and maximizing how realistic the simulator is so that you can sync all of your motions, your shift and your hand position on the steering wheel and your brake application and how you use the pedals. You want to be able to apply all of the things that you spend every hour in the simulator in your real car. And so we dial in, like my brake pedal has about, just by feel, it's got about the same amount of travel as the race car that I drive in real life. The same thing with the pressure. It takes, like at Portland, when you're coming into turn one at 165 miles an hour, we are braking with about 200 to 300 pounds of force with your left leg, with your left foot. And so I've got my brake in my sim programmed to the same amount of pressure. So when I get on the brake pedal, it moves exactly the same as the real brake. And that way you can start training the muscle memory so that when you go to the racetrack, we only get, between 25 and 45 minutes of practice. So that's at Portland, it's a minute and 20-second lap. So that's maybe at the most 15 to 20 laps. So, so you don't have much to do when you're there. And the team expects, this is high level professional racing. So the team expects every driver not only to know what they're doing when they show up, but to use practice as less for the driver and more for setting the car up for the track and allowing the car to handle better for that specific day. And so as a driver, you're kind of expected to come out of the gate swinging and then use the time to make your car better. Which you could not do without a simulator.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I have to tell you, when you're talking about consumables, I have a picture of my son standing in front of a wall of tires in the pit area. He was like, "Mom, check this out." And then when we're driving back, I mean, when we were walking back, through the area and walking back to our seats, he kind of nudges me and he goes, "You see that toolbox right there? It's like $1 million worth of tools are in that toolbox." I was like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" I mean, it was like a life-size toolbox. It was just, yeah, it was.
Yeah, the pit carts are insane, and they have these, they call them cool down units, and they when we come in, these stock cars are so heavy, and you're slowing them down from such a high rate of speed that the brakes will literally catch on fire when you come to a stop. It happened to me at Portland. And so they have these things called cool down units. They're like these big industrial fans that they put on the wheel package on each wheel, and they weigh a ton, and they just pump cold air into the brakes to cool everything down. And so they store those on those pit carts. That's what they call them, like pit boxes. Okay. So they store those. They've got your jack and your jack stands, and then all the tools for the team on those boxes. And then some of them even fold the top out, and they have seating on top, so you can sit on top and watch the race from like a 10-foot high box. So they're tens of thousands of dollars to get, of course, built. But yeah, the tech is insane. And at Portland, I want to say we went through 3 sets of tires. We had a scrub and two stickers, which is every race they have a limit on how many tires you can buy, because otherwise you could go and buy unlimited amounts of tires. At the national level, the limit's a lot higher. Like the trucks in the O'Reilly series, they're doing 10 sets of tires, sometimes more per race. So just the sheer expense on tires, let alone everything else, the brakes, the motors, the transmission. Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, especially the ownership side of it.
As a business owner, I understand that, right? You're always balancing cash and income and outgo and cash flow, and it's part of the fun of the business, but it's also so stressful.
Yeah, and I'm getting exposed to that now. Up until last year, up until Portland, I had always owned my own cars, and it was an easy business to run from the standpoint of, okay, well, I just go racing, and if I get some sponsorship or I win some races, like maybe I'll break even. And then I realized I had this thing called rent, and that blew my mind. And so that's been the biggest learning curve in my young career was how to scale. I mean, the budgets for one race were my budget for the entire season a couple years ago. So it's astronomical, and not many people get to the level that I'm at. And so it's there's not a whole lot of mentorship. I mean, I have some good mentors in my camp, but I'm just flying blind, just trying to figure it out. And
here's the good part about flying blind is that you don't know where the barriers are. You don't see them. You just blow right past them.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen it time and again. Old timers are like, "Oh, you can't do that because of this and this." And then while they're talking about why you can't get it, you're done. You're done with it. You've done it. I've seen it. Yeah. It's so cool. It's so cool. And I think that what I love about you and this and me and doing this is that I hear all the time. I'm 60. I'm going to turn 69 this June. It just horrifies me to think about it. But people always tell me how brave I am. Like, "Oh, you're so brave." Because I just do random things like sell everything I own and move to Canada, or just buy a 1989 Dodge Ram van and drive it across the country, or I just do things because it excites me. And that's what the thought of just sitting in my house is kind of horrifying. And I kind of sense the same in you, is that you just are very, what the other people would say are, you're so brave that you do these scary things, taking on a business and driving at 165 miles an hour. Wait, is that, and then trying to brake through a turn.
The speed isn't scary. It's the sudden stop that's pretty scary. So, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think that,
so. How does that? How do you manage, like, So and I think for a lot of people with issues, brain disorders, or, just life disorders, I don't even hate the word disorder, but issues in our lives that create self-limiting beliefs, but also create some realistic issues in our lives. How do you get to the point where you can step beyond that thought process and really work to have the life that you want?
That is a really great question. And I truthfully, I don't know the answer because I don't really have a vision in my head of the life that I want. I think I'm living a life that I guess I had dreamed about maybe as a kid. I didn't know that racing cost money, and I didn't know that there was a business behind it, but I knew I wanted to be a race car driver. And so I had that driving me, and I had that purpose. And then the purpose came first. And after the purpose, it was, okay, well, how can I make it work? And what do you have to do to do that thing? And so I think, one thing that I've told some friends, some people that I mentor coming up in the sport, is you have to accept what you want may not be the way you thought you'd achieve it, but ultimately the finish line remains unchanged. And so, for example, if you were wanting to work, you wanted to be a musician and you wanted to go and perform. What you might love there is playing music, right? Or you might love being in front of people and performing and making them feel something. And so ultimately, if you can capture what that purpose is, and then figure out a way to do that in your daily life, I felt like that was the biggest thing that makes me not think about the consequences, because it's for me, I don't think about crashing. I know it's probably stupid, and it people think I'm insane for it, but I've crashed cars before and it hurts. But before I strap into a race car and put my helmet on, it's not even a thought in my brain. It's
right.
The bigger thought is not qualifying for the race, not going fast enough, not disappointing my sponsors or my friends. Like the thought of me crashing doesn't even enter a brain cell. And I think if it did, I'd probably quit racing. So because you can't, and you when your friends crash, you don't, you ask them if they're all right, but you don't really think about it, because it challenges the integrity of what you're doing. And so I think if you're so blinded by purpose, it's easy to go and chase it with relentless passion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you and I are so fortunate to understand that, to have that purpose, to be like, okay, I'm just going to do this because this is what I love. And not worry about the how. Like I love what you said, like the finish line isn't changing. It's still going to be there. The goal is to get there, and how we get there. Sometimes you start off one way and you wind up really surprised by something else that totally works and gets you there.
Yeah, and I think to add one little cap to that, it's and I don't know how this will affect my life, but I knew that when we did Portland last year, that was, other than getting into college, that was the biggest dream that I had in my whole life, was to go be a NASCAR driver and go race on TV and do that. And I thought after Portland and I was done and I was sitting there in the car and no one had talked to me yet, it hadn't really set in that I had done the thing that I had set out to do. But what had set in, I had a big relief and I was done, but I was almost disappointed that I was done. Like I had a good day. It was a great race, and it was one of the best days of my life. But there was a disappointment because I had reached my goal, and I didn't know if there was something next. And I guess in my head, I was like, well, I guess I just do it again. Like I don't know. It's like the motor, it stopped for a second, and then it just kept winding. And so I don't know when that ends. And I don't know when it ends for anybody. And I think that the idea is you keep moving the goalpost until you either get bored of what you're doing and you lose your purpose, or you find something better.
Yeah, you just keep going. And what I love is that, I'll achieve something and then the horizon expands from that achievement, right? You make it to this, and then all of a sudden 3 more doors open, right? And people are saying, hey, I saw that you did ABC. Have you ever thought about doing 5, 6, 7? And you're like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah. So you're so awesome. It's so awesome. And now I got to ask you this, because we ask everybody, and I'm so excited about you and the work that you're doing and the future that you have, and to be just such a part of it. And this year we have a bigger, our logo is on all your cars. It makes me so happy to see Holding the Hope on your suit, on your car. It's like, yay. And so I just, in the middle of all the noise and the speed and the hard work and the racing, I just want to ask you, what gives you hope?
Great question. I think what gives me hope is helping to change the narrative that it's okay to be vulnerable and to get help for yourself if you need it. And I think that's my story. It's something that I grew up facing for several years of my life. And, if I could have a positive message in racing, that's what it would be.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. That's not just a message for racing, Austin. That's a message for life. So that's fantastic. Now, listen, if people want to contact you and have you bring your simulator to their place, how do they reach you, and how do they get in touch with the Race4Autism? And I'm assuming you take donations. So if people get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, donations are definitely welcome. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we operate with we have a huge impact with a very limited budget. Most people would be surprised with what we do, to impact as many people as we do with the budget that we have. And so, and most of that's just because it's me. Like I'm driving the trailer with the simulators and the race car, and I've got some friends who come and help run this thing. But, from the bottom of my heart, I really do care about it. So it's something that I would love to do more. It's limited by my availability with racing and everything else. But yeah, so you can reach me at austinvarco.com.
Okay.
Or search Race4Autism with the number 4.
Okay.
And either you'll find us either way. And then my contact is on the contact form there.
Great. Austin, thank you so much for joining me here on the Other 9 podcast. And thank you for being a spokesperson for hope and such a great example of what it looks like to just go out there and live your life. So many people don't do that. And I'm just so proud of you. I'm just so proud of you. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.